Good afternoon, everyone. So, any questions from the previous class? Bal Mularaj ही बोलते हैं. We call Bal Mularaj basically signifies that he became king when he was very young. Hence the name Bal Mularaj. Although in some cases, in some instances, it is mentioned that there was a king called Bhim too, who may have been perhaps son of when Bal Mularaj became king properly, and his son Bhim too defeated Muhammad Ghori. So at some places you will find that also. That is also mentioned that Bhim too defeated Muhammad Ghori. Any question? So in the last class, I had started my discussion about that the first Turkish invasion to India, which was led by Ghazni, and that Turkish invasion actually led to a lot of massacre, lot of loot. But then, with death of Ghazni, Ghazni did not remain very powerful. And even though Turkish raid, for example, I told you that even though Turkish raid continued, but now kings were able to resist such raids. There are few examples. जैसे गढ़वाल्स जो हैं, they were able to resist one of the Turkish raids. So there are few examples like this. But then, so let me briefly tell you what is happening in the region of Afghanistan. Ghazni became a very powerful empire, but the Ghaznavid empire declined. Now there is another region in Afghanistan called Ghor region. Ghor region initially was part of Ghazni kingdom itself. Ghor region, in fact, at one point of time, it was ruled by Buddhist rulers. And I recently came to know, which is again a very interesting fact, that Muhammad Ghori grandfather and great-grandfather, they were actually Buddhists. So in any case, the story is something like this, that Ghurids were insulted by Ghaznis. जो Ghaznavid kingdom है, Ghaznavid rulers, they did not like Ghurids, despite the fact that they were under him. And when Ghaznavid declined, then now this was the correct, right opportunity for Ghurids to attack and occupy Ghazni. So Ghazni came under now another sultanate, another empire, which we call Ghurid Sultanate. And Ghurid Sultanate had few rulers, but the ruler which we have to know, his name was Muizuddin, or we popularly call him Muhammad Ghori. So Muizuddin, when he became sultan, he wanted to emulate the success of Ghazni. That is about 150 years later. I'm talking about now 1170, 1175. And Ghazni had died in 1030 AD. So more than 150 years, about 150 years later, I'm talking about. So he wanted to emulate that success, but with more ambitions now. He wanted to establish his kingdom. He had imperialistic ambitions. It was not just about loot anymore, it was about establishing a kingdom into India. So he started his attack. In fact, I told you in the last class that the very first attack he did was in Gujarat, because Somnath, despite the fact that Somnath was destroyed, but very soon it was restored also with the help of many kingdoms, not just Solankis, but many kingdoms. But at this point of time, now Solankis were prepared and they were able to defeat Ghori. So Ghori also realized that he has to prepare himself, and he did that by fortifying his army in the region of Punjab, जो पाकिस्तान का जो पंजाब region है. So for example, especially around the region of Lahore, that he built strong fortifications here, and from those fortifications now he started moving inroads towards India. That is about 1190. And then he came to Punjab region of India, Bhatinda, and meanwhile, in India, what is happening? In India, you have Chauhans. So there was, I told you in the last class, that there is a triangular contest for supremacy among Chauhans, Ghadwals and Tomars. But Chauhans had emerged the most powerful clan at this point of time, and especially Prithviraj Chauhan, who is the most famous ruler of Chauhan dynasty. Now, he also wanted to expand further to Punjab region, because in North India, he had occupied significant part of territory. So there was a rival claim now over a fort which is called Tabar Hind Fort, and that rival fort led to conflict between Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghori. And that led to the very first battle, a historic battle called Battle of Tarain in 1191. But in this battle, Prithviraj Chauhan emerged victorious, Ghori barely escaped. But at the same time, despite the fact that Chauhans emerged victorious, it took a lot of time for them to occupy the fort which was occupied by Ghurid Sultanate, which was occupied by army of Muhammad Ghori. It took few months, in fact. Another problem is that despite the fact that Chauhan emerged victorious, he did not actually invest into building, strengthening his position in the region of Punjab. That is in fact one of the reason why so many Rajput kings, जैसे जो पूरा Turkish conquest है, I'm going to talk about Turkish conquest. Turkish conquest is also some sort of paradox that Turks were not millions, they were not hundreds, but they were not also millions, they were thousands. Thousands of Turks came to India and they were able to defeat almost all of these kingdoms, almost all of the Rajput kingdoms one by one, and nobody was able to resist them. And we will try to understand that why it may have happened. And there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is also that many of the kings, they did not have a strategic vision. Strategic vision in the sense that all these kings knew that India is vulnerable from the Punjab region. They were also not aware about what is happening in rest part of the world. Now compare that to with, let's say for example, Chandragupta Maurya or Kushans or Guptas even. That Chandragupta Maurya का जो एक सबसे important military campaign है, that is in the Punjab region when he occupied all the region won by Greeks. I told you about that how Greeks had occupied the Punjab region, but Chandragupta Maurya defeated Seleucus Nicator and then he strengthened his position in the Punjab. That may have happened much earlier, in about 300 BC. So compared to that, the Rajput kings, they were not aware, or perhaps they did not invest enough into what is happening in different part of the world, especially in the neighboring regions of Afghanistan, Central Asia. And despite the fact that they had chances to build their fortification into Punjab region, they did not. So in any case, the second battle of Tarain happened, and in second battle of Tarain 1192, now Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated. Now here is the thing. There is a very famous book called Prithviraj Raso. I cannot go ahead without telling you the main points of Prithviraj Raso. But many historians do not consider Prithviraj Raso as correct historical account. They have reservations about some of the aspects. Without any doubt, Battle of Tarain happened. इसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. First battle Prithviraj Chauhan won. That is also, इसमें भी कोई doubt नहीं है. So यहाँ तक कोई problem नहीं है. But there are certain parts of this story where historians do not agree with. So for example, in this story of Prithviraj Raso, Prithviraj is of course the main character, he is the hero of this story. The story starts with talking about the fact that how Prithviraj Chauhan is a great archer and he is compared with some of the greatest archers of ancient world such as Arjun or Ram or Abhimanyu, Lakshman also. Just for example, he knew the tactic of what we call Shabd Bhedivan. Now Shabd Bhedivan literally means that you do not have to look to the target, you can hit the target just by listening to the sound. So, and very few people apparently had this skill, including Ram for example, Dashrath had this skill, Ram had this skill, Arjun had this skill from Ramayana and Mahabharata, and even Prithviraj Chauhan had this skill. So story starts like this, a very brave person who inherits Delhi from his maternal grandfather Anangpal Tomar. यहाँ पे सबसे पहला contention है, historians do not agree to this part of the story because we have accounts that Chauhans already had emerged victorious in Delhi. Chauhans already had defeated Tomars and Delhi was already part of Ajmer kingdom when Prithviraj Chauhan became the ruler. But nonetheless, in Prithviraj Raso, the story is that Prithviraj Chauhan inherited the Delhi kingdom because Anangpal Tomar did not have his own successor and Prithviraj Chauhan was his maternal grandson. In any case, when he became ruler of Delhi, he made Delhi his capital. And then it talks about that he had enmity with Gahadwal's Jaichand, a contemporary ruler called Jaichand. Now Jaichand and Prithviraj Chauhan, they did not like each other, but then this story is also a love story. So Prithviraj Chauhan falls in love with Sanyogita, who is daughter of Jaichand. And then Jaichand of course does not like it, so he organizes what we call Swambar. Swambar is where the girl has to choose her own husband for Sanyogita, for his daughter. And to further insult Prithviraj Chauhan, he has a statue of Prithviraj Chauhan erected who is like a doorkeeper. Now the story takes a very filmy turn here that Prithviraj Chauhan actually changes his form and he is hiding behind that statue and Sanyogita rejects everyone and uses her garland on that statue. But coincidentally, Prithviraj Chauhan is behind that statue. He kidnaps Sanyogita and marries her. So this enmity between Jaichand and Prithviraj Chauhan, that further increases. This is also the point of time where Prithviraj Chauhan already has defeated Muhammad Ghori. Then somehow Prithviraj Chauhan forgets about his kingdom. He is too much in love. And because of that, when Gauri is preparing for the next attack, then Chandrabardai, who is his best friend, Chandrabardai actually goes and tells him that you have to prepare for the battle. And in this battle, it is insinuated that in this battle, Gauri had some not direct support, but indirect support of Jaichand also. Now with this support, now Muhammad Gauri attacks and defeats Prithviraj Chauhan. Then he captures Prithviraj Chauhan and he brings him to his kingdom, Ghazni. Ghazni has become the capital of Ghurid Sultanate. Then Chandrabardai tells Gauri that Prithviraj Chauhan knows Shabd Bhedi Ban. So to demonstrate that skill, he blinds them, he gets the eyes removed of Prithviraj Chauhan and calls upon all of his people that he is going to demonstrate his archery skills. And in the end of the story, Chandrabardai narrates a poem, and that poem is basically coordinate of Muhammad Gauri, that from here where exactly Muhammad Gauri is located. And Prithviraj Chauhan fires an arrow, and despite the fact that he is blind, he is able to kill Gauri. And Chandrabardai has a poison with him. Both of them commit suicide after that. So this is how Prithviraj Raso ends. Now first battle, second battle, that is accurate. But ye jo part hai, that going back to Ghazni and killing Muhammad Gauri, this is also historians do not agree with, and there are many reasons behind it. So what historians agree with, that what may have happened, that Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated, but he was allowed to rule as a feudatory. Now how do we know that? Because we have found coins which is stuck with both the picture of Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Gauri together. Both of them are together on the throne. So he may have been allowed to rule Ajmer, but nonetheless, that is also very clear that Prithviraj Chauhan rebelled against him, and in the very same rebellion he was killed, and his son was now put on the throne, but his son was also later killed, and Ajmer and Delhi both were occupied. Regarding Gauri, what happened to Gauri? So this happened in 1192. By 1193, Prithviraj Chauhan may have been killed, but Gauri was alive till 1198. Iske bahut sare records hain. That he was fighting many battles. For example, one of the battle he was fighting, very similar to Ghazni, that he was not just fighting in India, he was also fighting a battle into Central Asia. But compared to Ghazni, who was winning in Central Asia also, Gauri was not winning in Central Asia. So in contemporary to Ghazni kingdom, there was another kingdom in Persia, which was called Khwarizmi. I'm throwing away a lot of names, you do not have to remember it. So there was a kingdom called Khwarizmi kingdom, and Khwarizmi kingdom and Ghazni kingdom, they had lot of enmity. But while Ghazni was able to defeat Persia, was able to defeat many tribes, but Gauri was not. So now finally Gauri thought that this is the time that he has to leave that part of the world, he has to leave that ambition, and he has to only follow towards India. So his next set of campaigns was with other Rajput kingdoms. One of the last kingdom, so one of the last campaign he did was, so how he died, isko leke bhi jo sabse accepted theory ye hai, that there was a warlike warrior tribe in Punjab region called Khokhars. A tribe, I'm using the word Khokhar tribe. Now Khokhars were warrior tribes, and Khokhars had cut off its supply from the Lahore region to the Indian part of Punjab region, to the abhi jo Pakistan Punjab region hai aur jo abhi Indian Punjab region hai. So they had cut off that supply, and Gauri had attacked Khokhar to punish them. And while he was going back to his kingdom, while he was resting at some place, he was killed by one of the Khokhar assassins. That is the most accepted theory about Gauri's death. But Gauri did not have his own successor. He did not have any son or any daughter. But what he had is trusted slave commander. अब ये भी एक बड़ा interesting है, बहुत interesting Turkish एक tradition है that slavery has been prevalent throughout the Europe, Arab region, Persian region in ancient times also. But the Turkish slavery tradition है, that is quite interesting. That yes, slaves' conditions were very bad, but slaves who proved to be very useful by showing their bravery, by showing the fact that they are faithful to the Sultan, they often rose to the ranks and they often came very close to Sultan. So Muhammad Gauri had many slave commanders, and many of those slave commanders, he really liked them as sons. So when Gauri died, now the slave commanders started battling among themselves that who is going to rule whatever is left. One of the slave commanders started ruling Ghazni, but another slave commander whose name is Qutubuddin Aibak, he started ruling India from Lahore as a capital. And surprisingly, both of these slaves, they were loyal to Gauri, but they were not loyal to each other. So Muhammad Qutbuddin Aibak did not like his contemporary slave ruler of Ghazni, and he severed all of his ties with Ghazni kingdom, and now only and only focused on India. Administration to kuch hai nahi, the only source of revenue is loot. So now he started his own campaign throughout India. For example, he was able to defeat many Rajput kingdoms of Rajasthan, Gujarat. He was able to defeat Solankis, and second sack of Somnath temple happened by Qutbuddin Aibak. But even more success was another commander called Bakhtiyar Khilji. A commander, Bakhtiyar Khilji, who worked under Qutbuddin Aibak, he was given free hand in the region of Bihar and Bengal. Now in Bihar and Bengal, you did not have a very powerful kingdom. This last time we talked about Bengal was that they were Pala rulers, but they were replaced by Sen rulers. When Turks reached with their horses, now Bengal has always been a very important part of trade. So traders from Arab region, from this region, that was not at such a very uncommon sight. So when horses entered into the kingdom, people thought that they were traders, but now suddenly they are near the palace and nobody is prepared for the battle. The king makes a emergency rescue. He is able to save himself. His name is Lakshman Sen, but everybody else in the palace is massacred. Lakshman Sen, what happens to him, nobody knows. But Lakshman Sen also may have been died, and Bengal was captured by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now there is only one kingdom, powerful kingdom, who could have resisted Turkish aggression, but that also fell. And after fall of Sen dynasty, now Bakhtiyar Khilji had complete free hand. So for example, now he attacked Nalanda University, and Nalanda University was burnt to ashes. There are contemporary records that the university burned for months, perhaps 2-3 months. The university kept on burning. It had lakhs of manuscripts. People pleaded him that at least leave the library, but he did not listen to that also. Many of the Buddhist monks in the university, that was massacred. And he became even more ambitious. Now he wanted to attack Tibet. And to attack Tibet, he had to go via Assam region. Now Assam region, in Assam region, जो Kamrup kingdom of ancient world है, there was a king called Prithu Rai. He belonged to a dynasty called Khin dynasty. But Assam का जो campaign है, that proved to be very costly for Bakhtiyar Khilji because of mountains who he did not have any awareness about, and जो Khin rulers हैं, they clearly knew the geography. So they invited the army deep into their territory, and they started guerrilla warfare. They cut off their supply line, and when the army was completely exhausted, then they attacked from all the sides. Bakhtiyar Khilji barely escaped. While he was resting in Bengal, he was killed by one of his own slave commander, one of his own emir. So that ended one part of the Turkish campaign. But Qutbuddin Aibak, he actually, his campaigns were successful. Bakhtiyar Khilji campaign was also very successful in initial days, except his Assam campaign. But Qutbuddin Aibak continued, and he led the foundation of what we call Sultanate. Although his capital was not Delhi, the capital to Delhi that was shifted by his son-in-law Iltutmish. We will talk about that. But just give this heading, Turkish conquest to India. Turkish conquest to India. Right on. Another sultanate called Ghurid Sultanate. A sultanate called Ghurid Sultanate. Ghurid Sultanate in the Ghor region of Afghanistan. In the Ghor region of Afghanistan. Afghanistan became very powerful in 12th century. Became very powerful in 12th century. AC नहीं चल रहा, किसी को बुलाएंगे क्या? Feeling exhausted. Became very powerful in 12th century. One of the ruler Muizuddin Muizuddin wanted to emulate the success of Mahmud of Ghazni, emulate the success of Mahmud of Ghazni, Mahmud of Ghazni. His first attack in Gujarat, in 1178 was unsuccessful. हमने लास्ट क्लास में डिस्कस किया था बैटल ऑफ कशारदा. In 1178 was unsuccessful. After this, he built a strong base at Punjab. Meanwhile, Chauhans had emerged victorious in the neighboring regions, and after occupying Delhi, Prithviraj Chauhan wanted to expand to Punjab. Ghurid army and Chauhan army fought First Battle of Tarain in 1191 over rival claims of Tabarhind Fort. Ghurid forces were completely routed. Gauri barely escaped. However, in Second Battle of Tarain, 1192, Second Battle of Tarain, 1192, he was able to defeat Prithviraj Chauhan. And by the way, Prithviraj Chauhan was the most powerful person in North India at this point of time. Write down. Many cities were captured and plundered. Prithviraj was allowed to rule for some time. I will repeat why we are making this statement. If you read Satish Chandra, he mentions that we have found coins. Numismatics has proven evidence. We have found coins with both the images, both the Chauhan as well as Prithviraj Chauhan and Muhammad Ghori sitting on the throne together. Allowed for some time. He rebelled later. He rebelled later and was killed. Muhammad Ghori had imperialistic ambitions. Muhammad Ghori had imperialistic ambitions. Imperialistic ambitions. He wanted to acquire territories in India. He wanted to acquire territories in India. But was also interested in acquiring regions of Persia, from Khwarizmi Empire. So there was a Persian empire called Khwarizmi. He left Indian affairs in the hand of his trusted slave commander, Qutbuddin Aibak. Aibak was able to defeat kingdoms of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. So especially यहाँ पे there are few cities which were massacred. Mathura is one example, Varanasi is another example, Ayodhya is another example, Somnath is another example. That in such campaigns, there is again एक जो हम बात करते हैं, मैंने पिछले क्लास में बात करा था एक bias in historical writing. There has always been a criticism against historical writing in India that it has been written by left-wing historians, and one of the criticism against left-wing historians have been that they have tried to downplay the crimes committed by early Sultanate, जो early Delhi Sultans and even before the Turkish conquest, the type of massacre which occurred, that has been downplayed a lot in history writing. One of the argument, I was recently listening to an interview made by Shashi Tharoor, and he was making that this may have been done basically because just after independence, there was a lot of enmity between Hindus and Muslims. So this may have been perhaps deliberately done to ensure that जो social cleavages हैं, वो और ज़्यादा खराब ना हो. Because then history will be politicized and people are going to use it as a political agenda to further divide between Hindus and Muslims. I cannot appreciate this argument because I don't think that is then you are trying to solve the problem. There are social cleavages. ये बड़ा ज़रूरी है realize करना. जैसे बहुत सारी चीज़ें ना हमने अपने मन में एक बना रखा है कि Britishers created this divide between Hindus and Muslims. That is clearly not true. That division was there. Britishers utilized it. Social cleavages were there. Britishers used it. They realized that we can further divide them, and by dividing them, we can rule them for very longer duration. And this is exactly what they did. So we have to realize that there are social cleavages, and then we have to not changing the history or changing the fact that is not going to actually ensure that the social cleavages and that will also go away. So I think it is a process of healing, and process of healing comes from actual reading of history, and yes, in the course of time, healing will also occur, right? So Hindus and Muslims have been living in this country for many years, hundreds of years now, and ये जो division है, I'm very sure that all rational person will just realize that such type of division is only and only for political consolidation, because if you actually are talking about good of the country, then this division is clearly not the way forward. But nonetheless, I also cannot appreciate this argument that maybe it was used, maybe the historical writing, history writing was downplayed it was the crimes of Turkish invasion that was downplayed to ensure that social cleavages further do not enhance. But anyways, write down in next paragraph. Another commander, Bakhtiyar Khilji, another commander, Bakhtiyar Khilji, बख्तियार खिलजी, बड़ा मुश्किल है इसको लेके, हिस्टोरियंस में थोड़ा सा एक डिबेट है कि बख्तियार खिलजी वाज ही अंडर कुतुबुद्दीन ऐबक और वाज ही अंडर मोहम्मद गौरी. But many historians think that it was under Aibak himself. Aibak was the most trusted commander, and Bakhtiyar Khilji was working on the orders of Qutbuddin Aibak. So, but at the same time, he had a lot of autonomy in whatever you are going to do, whatever kingdoms you are going to capture, capture it. It was mostly about acquiring more and more territories. Right on. Bakhtiyar Khilji attacked Bihar and Bengal. Attacked Bihar and Bengal. Bengal was ruled by Lakshman Sen of Sen dynasty. Lakshman Sen of Sen dynasty. Sen dynasty. Bakhtiyar Khilji was appointed governor of Bengal. Bakhtiyar Khilji was appointed governor of Bengal. With no protector left. With no protector left. Nalanda and Vikramshila. Nalanda and Vikramshila universities were destroyed. Nalanda and Vikramshila universities were destroyed. Bakhtiyar Khilji wanted an expedition to Tibet. Bakhtiyar Khilji wanted an expedition to Tibet. However, he was overwhelmed and defeated by Raja Prithu Rai of Khen dynasty in Assam. He was killed by one of his own amirs. He was killed by, I'm talking about Bakhtiyar Khilji, he was killed by one of his own amirs. Muhammad Ghori last campaign in India. Muhammad Ghori last campaign in India was against Khokhars. Against Khokhars, a warlike tribe of Punjab. A warlike tribe of Punjab. On his way back to Ghazni, he was assassinated. He was assassinated. He was assassinated. Kutubuddin Aibak severed his connection from Ghazni, and set up his own independent kingdom, with Lahore as the capital. So this is the advent of Turks, advent of Islam to India. Very soon after that, Sufis also came to India. Sufis in large number started settling in the region of Punjab, in Ajmer region. And many Sufi traditions in India also started. As I told you in last class that how Bhakti movement has many strands. Even Sufism had many strands. One of the Sufi strand, they did not accept as such royal patronage. They were not part of the royal darbar. They lived life like an ascetic. They had a very interesting tradition of their own musical tradition, dargah tradition, ये सारी चीजें जो हम बोलते हैं, silsila tradition जिसको हम बोलते हैं. So all of that started by one group. जैसे for example Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, who belongs to Chishti silsila. He is of course the most prominent one. But then there were other Sufi strand also, such as Suharwardis, and Suharwardis took royal patronage, and they were actually part of the royal darbar. So even within Sufism you have different schools of thought. But that will be discussed along with Bhakti movement in art and culture classes. So I'm not going to focus on the Bhakti and Sufi वाला जो aspect है, उसके लिए एक अलग से art and culture में हम डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे. But give this heading: causes of defeat of Rajputs. Causes of defeat of Rajputs. There are many reasons. The first and most important reason is that none of these Rajput kingdoms emerged as a very powerful centralized ruler. Chauhans only for a brief period of time. And the fundamental reason is growth of feudalism in the society. That there are many feudal lords. Maybe there is one ruler. Prithviraj Chauhan is one ruler. But within Prithviraj Chauhan there are many feudal lords. These feudal lords often maintained their own private army. And if it was of essence, then this supported king. But these feudal lords often fought a lot of battle among themselves. They were never prepared for any type of impending attack. They were never able to supply their army if there was a need. And that was a major reason that the central ruler, central emperor, such as Prithviraj Chauhan or any other ruler, they themselves did not maintain a very large army, and they couldn't because economically they were not that prosperous. They were very much dependent upon their feudal lords, and those feudal lords often fought many battles among themselves. They did not see eye to eye in many cases. And in the necessity, whenever it was necessary, they did not supply army at the right point of time. So that is a very important reason. Another very important reason is that forget conflict among feudal lords. The entire Rajput history is about conflict among different Rajput clans. That all of these clans wanted to establish their supremacy, and all of these clans were fighting among each other. War was for glory, and for this glory, showing bravery, attaining glory, that was the most important thing rather than investing into administration. So entire Rajput history at this point of time in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th century, it is about series of battle where people fought with each other. Garhwals were fighting with Chauhans, Chauhans were fighting with Tomars, Parmars were fighting with Pratihars. So many clans are fighting among themselves, and because of this infighting, no one central kingdom emerged. So that is also another reason. Third very important reason is that even in some cases where Rajputs were able to resist Turkish aggression, but they did not invest into fortifying their position into the Punjab region. So in that sense, they also lacked a strategic vision. But we also have to find the reasons why Turks became so successful. Despite the fact, again I will repeat this, that Turkish conquest to India is a paradox. And why it is a paradox? Because they are not millions, they are thousands. And not also hundreds, but they are not also millions, they are thousands. And there are very good reasons. For example, the सबसे important reason was horses, use of horses. Many Rajputs, they employed a lot of elephants. Horses were part of the army, But they also employed a lot of elephants, and they relied a lot on elephants. Surprisingly, jo horses हैं, they are better than elephants. Actually, it is not surprising, simply because horses are much faster also. So they were great horse riders themselves. They were great archers also, and Turks also organized like one group of body. So it's not that everyone is individually attacking. Everybody is individually an individual warrior. They are, but at the same time they are also attacking like one group of body. And in that sense, they were very powerful. Turks का जो slavery tradition है, that was also very interesting because many slaves were actually very loyal to their sultan. Kutubuddin Aibak, Bakhtiyar Khilji, all Tughlaqs, जितने भी हैं, all of them were very loyal to the sultan. That loyalty is not in case of Rajputs, that many feudal lords are fighting battles among themselves. Right? So there are many reasons, some reasons, weaknesses within Rajput kingdoms, some reasons which can be highlighted as strength of Turks, and that actually led to defeat of many Rajput kingdoms into India. तो आप लिख सकते हो growth of feudalism, growth of feudalism, feudalism weakened the administrative structure, weakened the administrative structure and military organization of Rajput kingdoms, military organizations of Rajput kingdoms, Rajput kingdoms, they were dependent upon, they were dependent upon, they were dependent upon their feudal lords, their feudal lords, and these feudal lords rarely coordinated with each other, rarely coordinated with each other. Rarely coordinated with each other. Next, Rajputs, Rajput clans, write down, Rajput clans, Rajput clans fought many battles among themselves, fought many battles among themselves, which did not lead to emergence of any central empire, did not lead to emergence of any central empire. Write down next point. Rajputs never attempted to take back outer bastions of India, such as Kabul, Lahore, outer bastions of India, such as Kabul, Lahore. Again, I'm talking about Akhand Bharat. So Kabul, Lahore, from Turks, despite defeating them number of times. Next point. Turks had superior horses. They were great archers. And moved as an organized body of horsemen. organized body of horsemen. Turkish slaves were more loyal to their sultan. Turkish slaves were more loyal to their sultan. To their sultan. Any question till now? हाँ जी. इट नहीं, ये स्टोरी नहीं है. अटैक तो बिल्कुल है, इसमें कोई डाउट ही नहीं कि अटैक. ये स्टोरी कितना, आई नो दैट देर इज अ वेरी फेमस स्टोरी दैट ही मे हैव अटैक्ड ऑन नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी बिकॉज ही वाज suffering a lot. He was suffering from some disease, and one Buddhist monk cured him, and he felt that how can this knowledge be here? He has to destroy this knowledge. Again, ऐसे स्टोरी का historicity confirm करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. But one thing which is very clear that he was trying to attack, loot as much as he can, and he used religion as a tool. Nalanda is a Buddhist monastery also. It's not just a university, it is also a Buddhist monastery. And destroying a Buddhist monastery, that was further to assert his authority among his people, enthusing his people that we are going to destroy all these other religions, idol worshippers. ये सारा जो है एक बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा एक वो reason है, rather than talk. I know this story. I know that there is a very famous story, but I do not know if that story is true. मतलब उसके historicity को confirm करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. There is a question that is there any mention of rulers like Bappa Rawal and Nag Bhatt of Pratihar dynasty? Bappa Rawal was not from Pratihar. He actually belonged to another clan called Ghuila clan, if I am not mistaken. But Bappa Rawal and Nag Bhatt, they are very famous of, Nag Bhatt is of course, is a very important historical character. But Bappa Rawal का जो historicity है, उसको लेके काफी सारा debate है. Historians, they are very famous of Rajput folklore. जो Rajput folklore है, जैसे पृथ्वीराज रासो can be called a folklore. So Bappa Rawal is a very famous name in Rajput folklore. But historians often have found very difficult to actually pinpoint. He may have been a ruler in about 8th century, and he is credited with resisting Arab invasion, not Turkish invasion, Arab invasion. I told you in the last class that Arabs were not very successful except Qasim, who was able to defeat Sindh kingdom. जो छाछ रूलर जो हम लास्ट क्लास में बात कर रहे थे. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट जो अरब्स हैं, दे वर नॉट वेरी सक्सेसफुल इन इंडिया. टर्क्स वर वेरी सक्सेसफुल. So Bappa Rawal and Nag Bhatt both are credited with resisting Arab invasion. नाग भट्ट के बारे में हिस्टोरिक प्रूफ है. जो बप्पा रावल जो है उसको लेके हिस्टोरिसिटी को लेके डिबेट है. सो आई विल नॉट कमेंट अपॉन एनीथिंग बिकॉज द डिबेट इज नॉट वेरी क्लियर अबाउट इवन आइडेंटिटी एंड अबाउट हाउ व्हाट folklore actually narrates. So I will not comment upon that. But Nag Bhatt को लेके, yes, Nag Bhatt को लेके we have historic proofs. There are proofs which does tell us that Nag Bhatt was actually able to resist Arab invasion in again about 8th century. Right? So, but in any case, I am not talking about Arab invasion, I am talking about Turkish invasion. So, my next topic and a very important topic is Delhi Sultanate. So, give this heading, Delhi Sultanate. I already told you in the last class that Sultanate was ruled by 5 different dynasties. So the very first dynasty which ruled Delhi Sultanate is called Mamluk, which basically is a Turkish word of slave dynasty. Now why it is called slave dynasty? Because first it was started by a slave commander, and some of the important rulers, they are also slaves. So slave dynasty ruled from about 1206 to 1290. So there is a, in 1192, Prithviraj Chauhan has been defeated in Battle of Tarain. About 1198, 1199, Muhammad Ghori dies. And from 1200 to 1205, Abak and Bakhtiyar Khilji has a lot of campaigns. But he sets up his own independent kingdom in 1206 with Lahore as the capital. But he was not able to rule. Qutbuddin Aibak was not able to rule for very long. He died only after ruling 5 years. He was playing a game called Chaugan, which is basically horse polo. There is a game polo, आपने देखा होगा एक horse polo करके game होता है. So he was playing horse polo and he died in an accident while playing this polo. So his son, whose name was Aram Shah, he may have been become the next ruler, but he only ruled for few months. Aram Shah lacked vision. So Qutbuddin Aibak's son-in-law, his name was Iltutmish. Iltutmish defeated Aram Shah and he became the next ruler. Now it is actually Iltutmish who can be credited with consolidating the position of Sultanate. Qutbuddin Aibak ka jo region hai, that was very smaller region, Lahore, Delhi, they were part of his kingdom, from Lahore to Delhi. But it was Iltutmish who expanded the Delhi Sultanate and who consolidated the position of Delhi Sultanate into India. So I will talk about Iltutmish. So first dynasty, slave dynasty. So I was telling you that why it is called slave dynasty. So Qutbuddin Aibak started by a slave commander. But then there is another very important ruler of slave dynasty. His name is Balban. So what is happening at this point of time? Let me briefly summarize it. Iltutmish becomes ruler. Iltutmish, first thing he realizes that there are many commanders of Qutbuddin Aibak who even though were commanders of Qutbuddin Aibak, but now they are ruling independently. There is a commander in Punjab, there is a commander in Bengal. None of them are showing their loyalty to Sultanate, to Delhi Sultanate. So he led many campaigns to defeat the commanders of Qutbuddin Aibak. For example, he led a campaign in Bengal, he led a campaign in Punjab also, and throughout North India, he emerged as the most powerful ruler. He is also the one who can be credited with investing into administration. Ab administration bhi very interesting hai, because even Turks did not know that how much territory they have acquired. This entire region is unknown to them, geographically it is unknown to them. They also do not know that how much revenue they can collect from agricultural tax, land tax. So Iltutmish started a administrative setup which is called Iqtidari system. Iqtidari system was not a very well thought out plan. The purpose of Iqtidari system was that first Iltutmish instituted a group of nobles, 40 nobles, they are called Chahelgani. That 40 Turkey nobles who are going to help Sultan in decision making. First thing, a very important aspect. This Chahelgani actually played a very important role in the politics of Mamluk dynasty as well as other dynasties. Second thing he did is that he wanted to of course increase the source of revenue. Continuous कितना लूट करोगे, लूट करने के लिए भी एक बार जब डिफीट करोगे, after that you have to invest into administration, you have to have a regular source of revenue. So to do that, what he did, he instituted Iqtidari system. What it basically means is that his trusted commanders, they were given large piece of land like provinces, and they were allowed to rule this land as long as they are showing trust, they are showing basically that they are loyal to the Sultan himself. And from time to time, again from time to time, there is no regularity here. ऐसा नहीं है कि monthly basis पे, annual basis पे. From time to time, they have to collect revenue. They have to share a part of that revenue to the Sultan. So it was not a very well thought out plan, but nonetheless it worked because even जो इक्तदार हैं, जो इक्ता holders थे, I am using a word here, इक्तदार. Even इक्तदार basically they also realized that if they start setting their own independent kingdom, they are quite new to this region and they will have no support from Delhi if there is any attack from the other regional kingdoms. So Iqtidars ke liye bhi it was also a situation that they have to remain loyal to the Delhi Sultan. So despite the fact that it was not a very well thought out plan, कोई बहुत बढ़िया administrative innovation नहीं था, but nonetheless it worked at least for few decades, it worked fine. Now about Iltutmish, when Iltutmish died, despite the fact that he was conservative in many aspects, but he can also be considered liberal in some aspects. Iltutmish had many sons, but he did not consider any of his sons to become worthy of the rule. So he thought that the most worthy person who is going to rule Delhi is his daughter Razia. Although he faced a lot of opposition from Chahelgani, and while dying, now there is a lot of conflict here. While dying, there is a very famous story that he called his eldest son, and he may have told him that you are going to become the next ruler. But nonetheless, Razia did not accept this. So when Iltutmish died, then Razia did not immediately become the ruler. One of her half brothers became the ruler of Delhi. एंड जो पूरा रजिया का स्टोरी है वो बहुत ही फिल्मी स्टोरी है, बिल्कुल बॉलीवुड है. मतलब व्हाई इट इज बॉलीवुड? बिकॉज देयर इज अ स्टेप मदर, देयर इज अ प्लॉट टू किल हर, देन that plot actually succeeds in the sense that she is dethroned, then she marries one of her captors. Again, there are so many twists and turns in this story. So anyways, let me tell you about the story of Razia also, because Razia is a very important name, the first female sultan of the entire subcontinent region. Female queens are of course there in India. Even before Razia there are many female queens, but first Muslim queen and first Muslim ruler of the subcontinent region was Razia. So when Razia became ruler, she was not, so by the way, Razia, how did she become ruler? Initially, she did not immediately become ruler, one of her half brothers did. Now, one of the stepmother of Razia, she wanted to remove all the claimants of throne one by one. So one of her half brothers was killed by Razia's stepmother. And Razia used this opportunity to incite people that what is happening in Delhi. And there was a rebellion, and in this rebellion, she became the ruler. So the coming of Razia on throne in itself is again quite interesting. When she became ruler, there is a Chahalgani, there are 40 nobles, there are religious persons also, जो theologians हैं. जो theologians हैं, they did not like it. They did not like that a woman has become ruler. Many nobles also did not like it, but some nobles supported Razia's claim because they thought that because she is a woman, they will be able to manipulate her and de facto they are going to rule. But their ambition actually did not come out to be true, because turns out that Razia was a very effective ruler and she did not listen to Chahalgani as such in their day-to-day administration. So what they thought that they are going to find some sort of puppet ruler, that did not happen. And how it did not happen, there are many parts of it. For example, initially there was a veil in her court that nobody could see Razia. Everybody was talking behind the veil, but she removed that veil at one point of time. Another thing what she did is that she started issuing coins in her own name, very similar to how her father had done. So she issued coins in her own name. Third thing what she did is that she started going to the bazaars of Delhi while riding an elephant, very similar to how her father had done, to know about people, to know about the status of people. But all of this thing, they were of course, they went against her. But the most important thing which infuriated nobles was that she started giving position, some higher positions, to non-Turk Muslims also. अब यहाँ पे क्या है कि many people have settled into this country at this point of time, but जो Turks हैं, they had the highest status. जो Chahalgani है, that belongs to only Turks. All of them are Turks. There are some recently converts from India also, so there are Indian Muslims also. But Indian Muslims ka jo situation, it was not that good compared to Hindus. This is also quite interesting that Hindus at this point of time have become second-class citizens. They do not have as many rights as perhaps Turks have. But even Indian Muslims, the recent converts, they also do not have lot of rights. So all of the important position went to Turks, and Razia questioned that. Razia started giving some important position to non-Turks also. And this was the final straw. Many nobles who had supported her, now all of them went against her. And when men do not like women in authority, what they do? They start character assassination. So Razia's character assassination started that because she was not married, a very famous rumor was spread about her that she is having an affair with one of the non-Turk who was basically caretaker of the royal stable. जो royal horses हैं, जो royal stable का जो caretaker था. And there was a rumor that she is having an affair with him. So because of that, she faced a lot of rebellion. One of the rebellion happened in Lahore. She went, crushed that rebellion. But while she was coming back, there was a plot. And in that plot, she was arrested and she was imprisoned. And one of her another half-brother became the next sultan. Now Razia thought that in her last attempt that she has to become sultan, she married one of the captors, one of the kidnappers. And with the help of now her new husband, she made a last bid to recapture Delhi, but she failed, and while she was running, she was killed. Who killed her? That is debatable. Satish Chandra mentions that she was killed by a group of bandits. Dacoits basically killed her while she was on run. So in any case, she only ruled for 4 or 5 years, And after that, ये जो experimenting with female sultan है, that also did not happen throughout Delhi Sultanate, throughout the Mughal territory. After Razia, there is a succession war. There are many rulers, but they are not very competent rulers. Nobles are playing more important role. And one of the noble, his name is Balban, and Balban became the next ruler. So Balban is again a very powerful ruler of slave dynasty, and he also does not have royal blood. He is not successor of Iltutmish. He is also like a slave, and because these two rulers, the founder as well as Balban, they are slave, we call it slave dynasty. So my question was that why do we call it slave dynasty? And the first most important answer is that because it was started by slave himself. So you can give this heading. First ruler is Qutbuddin Aibak. Aibak only ruled from 1206 to 1210. With Lahore as capital, आप लिख सकते हो, with Lahore as capital. Lahore as capital. Aibak consolidated his rule in India. Aibak consolidated his rule in India. Rule in India. He is credited for starting the construction of Qutub Minar. And 2.5 दिन का झोपड़ा at Ajmer. 2.5 दिन का झोपड़ा at Ajmer. He died in 1210 playing Chaugan. He died in 1210 playing Chaugan, horse polo. His son Aram Shah became the next sultan. But was defeated by Iltutmish, who was son-in-law of Qutbuddin Aibak. Iltutmish is known for many things. He introduced Iqtidari system, set up Chehalgani. His contemporary of, by the way, Changiz Khan. One of the largest continuous kingdom which has existed in any part of the world and throughout the time, throughout this space, is an empire called Changiz Khan Empire. Mongol Empire जिसको हम बोलते हैं. Mongols were a tribe of Mongolia. Mongolia is a very small country just above China. It's a landlocked country. But Mongolia had a tribe. The tribe is, in fact, Mongolia name comes from Mongol tribe. And one of the Mongol tribe chief, his name was Changiz Khan. The Mongols were very powerful. They were very brave. They were great horse riders, great horse archers, and they were very brutal in their attack. And Changiz Khan had become, by the way, Changiz Khan is also called Genghis Khan in textbooks, but his actual pronunciation will be Changiz Khan only. So Changiz Khan, he started his campaign. He actually had become chief when he was quite old, in his 40s or 50s. And he started his campaign first to China. He defeated Chinese emperor. Entire China was captured by him. Then he started his campaign to the Central Asia, Persia region. He went by India. Somehow, जो Kashmir region है, so there is a very interesting story here that at this point of time in Delhi, Iltutmish is ruler. Now Genghis Khan was actually following one of the person who belonged to Persia. And this person came to Iltutmish to look for shelter. But Iltutmish denied it. Iltutmish knew that he is not going to defeat Mongols. So this person went to Persia and Genghis Khan did not enter to India. So that was only a fortune of at this point of time for Delhi Sultanate, because had Genghis Khan entered, there was no chance that any of the kingdom would have survived because of the attack Mongols did in any of the region they went through. So Genghis Khan went to Central Asia, occupied entire Central Asia, and the Khwarizmi Empire hai, which I talked about, that a contemporary of Gauri, Khwarizmi Empire was completely massacred, completely destroyed. So at one point of time, Genghis Khan was ruling Russia, China, entire Central Asia, Persia, part of Kashmir also, part of Punjab also. And he was contemporary of Iltutmish. And it was only fortune that Genghis Khan did not attack India at this point of time. So आप ये भी write down few things. It was Iltutmish. It was Iltutmish who consolidated the position of Sultanate, in India. He shifted his capital to Delhi. He defeated Turkish slaves, Kubacha and Ali Mardan. He defeated Turkish slaves, Kubacha and Ali Mardan in Bengal and Punjab respectively. He instituted, write down, he instituted Turkane Chehelgani, a group of 40 Turkish nobles, to assist Sultan. He started Iqtidari system in India. I will talk about Iqtidari system in detail, but first let me complete the political development which happened. He instituted Iqtidari system in India. Two basic coins of Sultanate, silver taka and copper jittal, were issued by him. By the way, they continued throughout the Delhi Sultanate. Issued by him. He completed the work on Qutub Minar. You can add one more line here. He was contemporary of he was contemporary of he was contemporary of Genghis Khan, founder of Mongol Empire. Founder of Mongol Empire. He nominated his daughter Razia to become the next sultan. Razia to become the next sultan as he did not consider his sons to be worthy of rule. He did not consider his sons to be worthy of rule. Razia only ruled from 1236 to 1239. Give this next heading. Right on here. Razia had to contend against her brothers, ulemas and nobles, for a brief period, Ruknuddin, half brother of Razia, became the sultan, but Razia incited public against him. Became the ruler. Thus, she became first female Muslim ruler of the subcontinent. She became first female Muslim ruler of the subcontinent. Few of the nobles supported her claim. They thought she will become a puppet ruler. But Razia started asserting her authority. For example, write down in bullet points. She issued coins in her name. Next, she removed veils from her court. made public appearances on elephants, made public appearances on elephants, and one more point you can add, appointed non-Turks on key positions, appointed non-Turks on key positions. Right on. She led a successful expedition. She led a successful expedition against a rebellious campaign in Lahore, against a rebellious campaign in Lahore. However, while returning, she was imprisoned in an internal rebellion. While returning, she was imprisoned in an internal rebellion. Her own nobles. Chahalgani जो है, few in Chahalgani rebelled against her and they got her arrested. Because the rebellion had more support than Razia herself. Many in the army also went against Razia. So this was this project of character assassination went on for some time, right? That she's having an affair with, despite the fact that she's not married, she's having an affair with one of the non-Turks. Right on. She later married one of her captors, Altunia. She later married one of her captors, Altunia, and tried to reclaim Delhi. However, was defeated, and while running away, she was killed. इसके बाद का जो पूरा पीरियड है, पीरियड ऑफ अबाउट 20-25 years, that is series of weak rulers. All of these weak rulers who are sons of Iltutmish. And these rulers did not play any major role because जो Turkish nobles हैं, जो Chahalgani हैं, some of the Chahalgani they became very powerful. Now some people in Chahalgani thought that they can become the ruler because of absence of weak ruler. The most powerful noble among Chahalgani was a person called Balban. His original name was Ulugh Khan, but he later became Balban. Balban, in fact, as early as 1255, he made his claim to the throne. But this claim was not accepted by other, and in fact, at one point of time, he was thrown into jail also. But because he had proven him to be a great military commander, he was freed. And then Balban realized that he has to wait for the right opportunity. And he took all methods he could take to remove all of the opposition. For example, he got people poisoned in proper conspiracy. Many of the people he got them killed directly. And finally, in 1265, he again claimed almost all of the Chahalgani which opposed his claim. They were removed one by one. There was nobody to oppose him, and Balban became the Sultan in 1265. So the period of 20-25 year hai, that is a period of series of weak rulers, not important. But when Balban became ruler, now Balban was very insecure. Why he was insecure? Because he did not come from the royal blood. He was not from the family of Iltutmish. And he has to made up for that. So insecure rulers often also become tyrant, and exactly that is what happened with Balban. He became a tyrant ruler. Any type of rebellion that was crushed severely, chalo wo bhi theek hai. But anyone who dared speak against him, they were beheaded in the gruesome manner, they were killed in the gruesome manner. He became a great champion of Persian culture. He claimed himself that his lineage belongs to the great Persia. And he became champion of Turkish nobility also. So all the key positions, which at the time of Razia, for example, few positions went to non-Turk, all of the non-Turks were removed from key positions. And he developed a great contempt for anyone who was not a Turk. Just in one of the instances, he writes that whenever he looks at a non-Turk who has given an important position, his eye starts burning and he wants to immediately kill that person. He introduced lot of practices like sajda and paibos, जहाँ पे आप बहुत बार सलाम करते हो सुल्तान को या पैर पे आप गिर जाते हो, something like that. So all of those practices were started by him, that you have to kiss the feet of Sultan or you have to continuously salute him whenever he is going through. So all such things, it can be again ये जो पूरा जो insecurity वाला part है. But his iron hand, the fact that he was able to crush many rebellion, that actually proved to be quite useful, because despite the fact that he did not come from the family of Iltutmish, he actually was able to crush lot of rebellions. He was able not just internal rebellion but also external rebellions. They say in one of the cases, one of the commander, he gave him the duty of becoming a governor of Bengal. His name was Tughril Khan. But Tughril Khan started attacking independently. He sent one campaign, but that campaign was defeated. He sent another campaign, that was also defeated. But then he went himself with all the army of Delhi. And then Tughril Khan fled from Bengal, but he continued pursuing him, finally captured him, beheaded him, and Bengal then that was given to one of his sons. Meanwhile, now I talked about Mongol Empire. So Balban now faced the threat of Mongol invasion. Iltutmish somehow had saved his kingdom from the Mongol invasion. So after death of Genghis Khan, the pura Mongol Empire that was initially divided into two parts. We call it Khanate. Khanate basically means a kingdom ruled by one Khan. Khanate. Khanate. So the pura empire that was divided into four Khanates later among the grandsons of Genghis Khan. Balban knew that in a direct conflict with Mongols he may not emerge victorious. So he maintained good relation with Khanate of Yuan in the China region, but he did not have very good relation with Chagatai Khanate. So Chagatai Khanate started attacking towards Delhi. Now Balban realized that again direct conflict may not be good. So what he did is that wherever it was possible to resolve conflict with diplomacy, he did that. So for example, he had to cede some of his territory, especially territory of Multan region jo hai, he had to give them to Mongols. But at the same time, in the region of Lahore, he started fortification. That there should be a permanent garrison here, a permanent battalion who is able to resist the Mongol invasion, so that their momentum will be reduced and army of Delhi will be prepared for this battle. In fact, one of his eldest son died in fight with Mongol. So this preparation to resist the Mongol invasion, even though Balban was not able to resist Mongols that much, but this preparation he did, that was actually proven to be very useful by later rulers, especially by Alauddin Khilji. We will talk about that. So it was Balban and his preparation who allowed Alauddin Khilji that he was able to defeat Mongols now. So we will talk about that. But meanwhile, what happened that when Balban died, now pura jo example of Balban kya hai, that he had removed all of the old nobility. So now there is of course, jo new nobility hai, they are not loyal to anyone. They are loyal to anyone who has authority, who can become the ruler. So when Balban died, his elder son, he has died in a battle. His younger son, who has become, his name was Bughra Khan. Bughra Khan was governor of Bengal. So Bughra Khan was called from Bengal that come and become the Sultan of Delhi, but Bughra Khan declined. I am very happy in Bengal. Delhi ka throne nahi chahiye. He knew the politics of Delhi, he declined it. And because of that, his minor grandson, he was put on the throne. Example of Balban is very clear to all the noble, all the military commanders, that anyone who has support of nobility, anyone who has commander army behind him can become the Sultan. So Balban का जो example, खुद का जो example है, that proved to be very dangerous for his own family. And then emerged another very major stakeholder. His name was Jalaluddin Khilji. Now, who are Khiljis? Khiljis were also Turks, but they had settled into the region of Afghanistan. And for few generations, they had settled into the region of Afghanistan. By the way, this is a map of slave dynasty at the time of Balban, that almost entire of North India was ruled by Delhi Sultanate. But जो Khiljis हैं, they had basically ruled the region of Afghanistan. And even though they were Turks, but because of many generations in Afghan, they are called Afghan Turks. But they were Turks. Now, Khiljis were the one who first faced the Mongol invasion. And whenever they had the first battle, उन्हीं से लड़े हमेशा, और because of that, most of the people who died in a battle with Mongol, they were Khiljis, army of Khilji, Jalaluddin Khilji. And despite this, they were not given due recognition in Delhi because of their Afghan connection also. That they are no true Turks, they are Afghan Turks. So they are not given this due recognition in the court of Delhi. And they did not like it. So Jalaluddin Khilji, when he realized that this is the ripe time, that there is a minor person, old nobility is completely destroyed, nobody is loyal to anyone, he has a very powerful army, he attacked Delhi, killed the grandson of Balban and became the next ruler. So that started the next dynasty called Khilji dynasty. So Jalaluddin Khilji, when he became ruler, जैसे if you have you watched movie Padmavat? Padmavat movie का जो starting है, Raja Murad is complaining that ये जो दिल्ली के सुल्तान हैं, ये तो कुछ करते नहीं हैं, हम खिलजीज मरते हैं. तो that is actually true. That Jalaluddin Khilji जो है, he did not like the fact that Khilji army is being massacred by Mongols and Delhi sultans are not facing the actually Mongol onslaught. And despite this, they are not given the due recognition in the court of Delhi. So Jalaluddin Khilji became the next sultan and he was quite old. Compared to previous sultans, he was better. That even though he was conservative in his orientation, but religiously he was not that of a bigot compared to earlier sultan, especially compared to Balban. He knew, for example, that majority of population are still Hindus, so he has to involve Hindus also. So many severe punishments or many of the severe taxes, for example, the load of jizya hai, that was reduced, not abolished, but it was reduced. He was more or less tolerant. Again, I'm using the word tolerant compared to Balban or compared to other rulers, compared to Qutbuddin Aibak also. Jalaluddin Khilji did not have any son as such, but he had a daughter and his daughter was married to his nephew Alauddin Khilji. Now Alauddin Khilji was governor of a region called Kara. Kara is a region in Uttar Pradesh. And Alauddin Khilji had attacked a kingdom in Deccan region called Devagiri kingdom. And he had collected lot of loot from it. And then he called his uncle that I am going to share that loot with you, come to Kara. So Jalaluddin Khilji was actually warned by his nobles that you should go with your proper army. But Jalaluddin Khilji had lot of trust on his nephew. So he went and Alauddin Khilji, he basically appreciated Alauddin Khilji a lot, and contemporary historians write that Alauddin Khilji hugged him and then literally stabbed him in the back. He killed him while he was hugging his uncle. And Alauddin Khilji also realized that this is not going to be liked by people of Delhi. He is going to face rebellions. But Alauddin Khilji also knew one thing, that as long as he has a very powerful army, nobody can do anything against him. And because of that, he is the person who actually first lot of loot he had collected, he shared that with all of his army. The army became very faithful to him. With all of the army, now he started his march towards Delhi. Because of the number, nobody dared to as such move against him. And he became the next Sultan of Delhi. And Alauddin Khilji, he ruled for many years. And throughout the time he ruled, he led one war against another war. He fought many battles with contemporary Rajput kingdoms, battles with Mongols, battles with, in fact, one of his trusted slave commander, his name was Malik Kafur. Malik Kafur started a campaign into Deccan region and southern kingdom. So we will talk about that also. Now when we talk about Alauddin Khilji, the most famous book which comes to mind is Padmavat. Now Padmavat, पूरी movie भी बनी थी, काफी सारा controversy भी हुआ था पद्मावत को लेके. So very similar to Prithviraj Raso, we have to discuss the story of Padmavat also, that what is happening in Padmavat. Padmavat was written by a great poet named Malik Muhammad Jaisi, who actually was in the court of Sher Shah Suri. I will talk about Sher Shah Suri जब हम Mughals पढ़ेंगे. So Malik Muhammad Jaisi wrote this famous poetry called Padmavat. The central story of Padmavat is that Padmavati Rani Padmini is very beautiful, and there is a story that there is a pet parrot of Rani Padmini, but this parrot has become quite, he is not saying good things basically. He has started abusing, or the sentences he are making, it can offend people. So the parrot is basically given capital punishment by father of Rani Padmini. But parrot somehow escapes with the help of Padmini, and then parrot goes to Raja Ratan Singh, who is basically ruler of Chittor at this point of time, and he narrates the story of the beauty of Padmini. And now there is a lot of story, but Ratan Singh marries Padmini. And at the same time in Delhi, you have Alauddin Khilji. So the story goes something like this, that Alauddin Khilji hears the story of the beauty of Rani Padmini, and he decides that he wants Padmini to become his wife. So he attacks Ratan Singh, but somehow, not exactly he does not attack. He goes and builds a strong fortification, and he asks the audience of Raja Ratan Singh. Ratan Singh comes as an audience because he does not want a battle, and Alauddin Khilji gives him an option that you have to show your queen, which Ratan Singh declines, but then he says that even a reflection will work. So Rani Padmini's image via mirror is shown to Alauddin Khilji. But Alauddin Khilji then betrays Ratan Singh, he kidnaps her. Then there is another story that how some of the loyal persons of Rani Padmini, Gora Badal, they in bravery goes and rescues Ratan Singh. Meanwhile, one of the brothers of Ratan Singh, who is by the way ruler of a neighboring kingdom, he has proposed Padmini in the absence of Ratan Singh. So when Ratan Singh comes to his kingdom, he does not like this insult. He fights with the neighboring king. Both of them kill each other. And this is also the time when Alauddin Khilji with all his army is now at the gates. But before he could capture Padmini, Padmini commits Johar, which is basically a practice where queen along with lot of her friends committed suicide by throwing themselves into a pyre, into basically they burned themselves alive. So this part of Johar wala jo story hai, iska bahut sara historicity hai, because there are many parts, there are many sources which corroborate this, that Johar, jo practice of Johar hai, that may have happened. But few things historians do not agree with. Jaise apart from this mythology, this literary part, parrot and all, wo to of course hum neglect kar sakte hain. But few things which historians do not agree with, that this entire story about that because of Padmini, Alauddin Khilji attacks Chittor, because Alauddin Khilji attacked many kingdoms, throughout he did not invest a lot into collecting a lot of revenue, into land revenue, etc. All he did is, all his administrative reforms was to ensure just one thing, that he has to feed a very large army. Alauddin Khilji had the largest army in contemporary India at this point of time. And he has to feed that army, and he is the first Sultan who started paying his soldiers into cash, apart from all the Delhi Sultan. So he needs source of revenue, and most important source of revenue is continuous battle with neighboring kingdoms. First, second, many historians also do not even accept this part of this story, that Ratan Singh allowed reflection of Rani Padmini to be shown, because Satish Chandra agar aap padhoge, to he also mentions that even Rajput pride will not allow that, even a reflection of the queen, that Rajputs will not allow that. But nonetheless, so this part of this story, that because of Padmini's because of his lust for Padmini, he goes and attacks, that part historians do not agree. But nonetheless, jo attack hai, that is there, uske bahut sare historic proofs hain, and not just Chittor, but many neighboring kingdoms, Ranthambore, Jalore, many neighboring kingdoms are attacked by Alauddin Khilji, and many of those kingdoms actually perish because of his attack. And most importantly, then he leads his campaign by not he himself, but one of his slave commander. So he initially was governor of this region called Kara, but one of his slave commander named Malik Kafur, he started a campaign into the Deccan region. He goes, defeats Devagiri king, then he defeats Hoysalas of Dwar Samudra, then he goes and defeats Madurai king of Pandya basically, and then he also goes and defeats Kakatiyas of Warangal. From Kakatiyas he finds Kohinoor diamond, And Kohinoor diamond from Kakatiyas then comes to Delhi and remains Delhi throughout Sultanate, throughout Mughal, but later of course it is taken by Britishers. So all of this loot that was collected by Malik Kafur. If you have watched Padmavat, and if you remember that song Binte Dil Mein Siriya Mein, right? Amazing song by the way. But the plot of the song, if you listen to the song, you will realize that something is going on between Alauddin Khilji and Malik Kafur. And many historians actually agree to that. Many historians actually agree that Alauddin Khilji was, he did not trust anyone, including his own family member. He got many of his own family members killed whenever he thought that they are plotting against him. But he trusted Malik Kafur, especially in the end part of his life, and they may actually have developed some sort of feelings for themselves. But nonetheless, when Alauddin Khilji dies, again Alauddin Khilji ke jo pura jo campaign hai, and the way he internal rebellion was crushed, that proved to be very costly for his family member. So when Alauddin Khilji died, one of his minor son was put on throne by Malik Kafur as a puppet ruler. But Malik Kafur was not liked by many people. So he was assassinated by some of the guards. And after this, the eldest son of Alauddin Khilji, he became the ruler. But the story is that his eldest son, his name was Mubarak Shah, he was betrayed by his most trusted friend. And his most trusted friend then invited many people during the night where nobody was awake. His group of people went to the harem, killed all the queens, all the sons, all the daughters of Alauddin Khilji. And for a brief period of time, basically, Khilji family came to an end. And for a brief period of time, even Mubarak Shah was also killed. And then, jo pura ye hai, Mubarak Shah, after that, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq comes to Delhi and he becomes the next Sultan. But we will come to that part also. But write down few things here. Give this heading Khilji dynasty. हाँ जी नहीं खान जो ओरिजिनली मुस्लिम्स का टाइटल नहीं है. जो चंगेज खान है, खान जो है, जो चंगेज खान का जो रिलीजन है, इट इज अगेन मिक्स्ड ऑफ रिलीजन है. देयर आर सम इंस्पिरेशंस फ्रॉम बुद्धिज्म, but mostly they are nature worshippers, and Khan becomes a title of many Muslims later. जो चंगेज खान है, so by the way many Mongols did accept Islam, especially at the time of Alauddin Khilji. इसमें and from that period of time जो Khan becomes a very popular title also, but that happened later. चंगेज खान as a follower of Islam, ये इसका historicity नहीं है. But yes, many Mongols during the time of especially Alauddin Khilji, and they had accepted Islam. But even Alauddin Khilji actually massacred a lot of them when they were complaining about something. I will come to that part also. But give this heading, Khilji dynasty. Khilji dynasty. So Khilji dynasty ruled from 1290 to 1320. 1290 to 1320. Write down here, Khiljis had Turkish-Afghan origin. Khiljis had Turkish-Afghan origin. Turkish-Afghan origin. Who despite their role in resisting Mongol invasion, were not recognized much in Delhi. Were not recognized much. अच्छा हमने बलबन के बारे में कुछ लिखा ही नहीं ना? नहीं please ये please remove it. Write down few things about Balban. Give this heading Balban. Balban is an important name. Few things about Balban you should know. So Balban ruled from 1265 to 1287. Write down here. Balban was a Turkish chief. who carefully removed who carefully removed all the opposition to his rule, all the opposition to his rule, and became Sultan in 1265. Became Sultan in 1265. He became a champion of Turkish nobility. He became a champion of Turkish nobility. Turkish nobility, and excluded all non-Turks, excluded all non-Turks from power and authority, from power and authority. He broke up the Chehelgani, he broke up the old Chehelgani, broke up the old Chehelgani, instituted a spy network called Barids, instituted a spy network called Barids, instituted a spy network called Barids, who directly reported to Sultan, He crushed many rebellions with iron hand, and further expanded Delhi Sultanate. For example, एक example आप लिख सकते हो. For example, he led a expedition against Tughril Khan. He led an expedition against Tughril Khan, who was appointed as governor of Bengal, but later rebelled against Delhi. After killing Tughril Khan, Bughra Khan, son of Balban, became governor of Bengal. And one last point which is very important, Balban faced the threat of Mongol invasion. Mongol Empire was divided among the children of Genghis Khan. Mongol Empire was divided among the children of children का मतलब यहाँ पे successors हैं. So initially two sons, but later one son and 3 grandsons. So children of Genghis Khan, or Genghis Khan, In 1241, write down, in 1241, Mongols had invaded Lahore. Mongols had invaded Lahore and captured a significant part of Punjab. Captured a significant part of Punjab. After becoming Sultan, write down, after becoming Sultan, Balban adopted both force and diplomacy. Balban adopted both force and diplomacy. Both force and diplomacy. He invested in fortification in Punjab region. In fortification in Punjab region, which was very useful for Alauddin Khilji. For Alauddin Khilji. In 1299, so during time of Alauddin Khilji, in 1299, Mongols had entered into Delhi. Mongols had entered into Delhi and destroyed many streets. Destroyed many streets. In 1303, they attacked again. In 1303, they attacked again. But Alauddin Khilji was able to comprehensively defeat them. Was able to comprehensively defeat them. Write down. After एक और line add कर लेना. Balban also started Iranian method of Sijda and Paibos. Sijda and Paibos in India. To greet Sultan. To greet Sultan. Persian festival Nowruz. Persian festival Nowruz became popular in Delhi during his time. Persian festival Nowruz became popular in Delhi during his time. After his death, his grandson Shamsuddin became the Sultan. However, he was dethroned by Jalaluddin Khilji. Let's take a break here. After that, we will talk about Khiljis. Alauddin Khilji के जो market reforms हैं वो काफी important है आपके prelims या mains examination. Super hearing capability. Some online students are saying that they have this background polity classes. No, but a lot of students are actually saying that, so it means that there is some problem. Can you just tell this to IT team? That's, there is some problem. कहीं तो microphone है, misplaced है, something is happening. That polity class जो है that is, हाँ मगर एक्चुअली पॉलिटी की क्लास चल रही है ऊपर, बट ऊपर चल रही है, हॉल 1 में चल रही है. प्लीज डोंट फाइट इन द क्लास. जो खिलजी, हाँ जी, हाँ जी. At the same time, ठीक है, तो point the question is asking is that जो रजिया becoming a sultan, is it similar to जो ancient Persia, ancient Egypt में जो queens थे, but very difficult to come to this conclusion that it is because of that. So, but what your point, I understand your point that there is a trend. ऐसा नहीं है कि there is a proper tradition. But I will not actually use the word proper tradition because, as I told you, that in the Indian subcontinent, she is the first female Muslim ruler, right? In the entire subcontinent region, and perhaps the only female Muslim ruler of the entire Indian subcontinent region, except there are one or few local rulers, which we'll discuss in later classes. But Razia is only one and the very first one. तो ऐसा भी नहीं कि कोई बहुत established tradition है, and in that sense, Iltutmish can be considered quite liberal because he did not consider his sons to be worthy of the rule. Compared to, तो ऐसा कोई हमको मिलता नहीं है. अगर आप immediately आप, I will not go into a पूरे world history में आप देखोगे तो आपको बहुत सारे of course example मिल जाएंगे. But we have to look and look from what is happening, let's say 6th, 7th century with advent of Islam into Arab and Persia region, and you have to find examples from that. And you have, I don't think if there is any tradition of that, but clearly if there is, we can count that on finger. Perhaps one or two names can be counted on finger. There are many. So for example, in Kashmir, there is a ruler called Didda. Didda is very infamous. Infamous in the sense that अब वही होता है कि देखो हिस्टोरियंस जज कैसे किया जाता है. सेम चीज अगर मेल रूलर करता तो उसको जज करते कि बड़ा एम्बिशियस था बहुत. दिद्दा के बारे में जैसे बोलते हैं कि दिद्दा गॉट मेनी ऑफ हर ओन फैमिली मेंबर किल्ड बिकॉज शी वांटेड टू रिमेन द क्वीन. बट वही सेम चीज अगर किंग होता तो वो अलग लेवल ऑफ जजमेंट होता. तो शी इज अ वेरी जज्ड कैरेक्टर. राज तरंगिनी मेंशंस अबाउट दिद्दा. देन ऑफ कोर्स यू हैव अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट नेम व्हिच वी विल टॉक अबाउट इज रुद्रमा देवी, ककातिया क्वीन basically. So we'll talk about her. So yes, there are few names, few female queens जो कि काफी important है, and we will discuss about them by the way जब हम regional kingdoms के बारे में करेंगे. There is a very important queen who defeated Akbar, a Deccan Sultan, right? There was another queen of, I think, in Bundelkhand region, who even though lost the war but showed a lot of bravery. So there are a lot of names. Jhansi की रानी of course is very famous. So there are many queens which, and by the way जो भी queens होंगे उनका नाम और ज़्यादा important हो जाएगा for prelims और mains examination. हाँ जी. नहीं, कैश सैलरी टू आर्मी. आर्मी को कैश में पे करना. क्वाइन तो मिंट तो ऐसे हम नॉर्मल इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी के लिए भी यूज करेंगे ना. So coins serve a very important purpose as normal economic activity, but paying regular salary to army in cash, अभी तक जो था the paid payment was in kind. Kind का मतलब होगा जैसे for example giving crop, share of crop, something like that. But a regular payment in cash, जैसे monthly जो salary का concept है, that a regular payment which is happening in cash, that was started by Khilji. So Khilji introduced lot of new things. जो खिलजी के reforms हैं वो काफी important है जो हम discuss भी करेंगे. Give this heading Khilji dynasty. Now you can write Khiljis had Afghan Turkish origin. Khiljis had Afghan Turkish origin. Afghan Turkish origin. Who despite their role in resisting Mongol invasion, were not recognized much in Delhi. Were not recognized much in Delhi. The example of Balban showed that with support of nobility and strong army, a general can become a ruler. A general can become a ruler. Jalaluddin Khilji set up the Khilji dynasty in Delhi. But he was treacherously killed by his nephew and son-in-law, Alauddin Khilji. Give this heading Alauddin Khilji. He ruled from 1296 to 1316. So I talked about Amir Khusro. Amir Khusro was court poet of Alauddin Khilji. Right on. Just by the way, Amir Khusro, the fact that he's court poet, while Barani talks about Khilji betrayal in harshest term, that how he betrayed his own uncle who had given him everything. But Amir Khusro does not mention that. So that is how court poets work. And that is why court poets ka jo work hoga, you have to be very careful when you are analyzing and when you are recovering historical facts from their work. So Khusro often exaggerate some of his military conquest, but also his internal rebellion, how he crushed his internal rebellion, how he killed his own family member, how many of such crimes have not been given lot of weightage in Khusro's writing, but Barani mentions it, that he kills many of his own family member. Right on. He was governor of Kara under Jalaluddin Khilji. He was governor of Kara under Jalaluddin Khilji. After becoming Sultan, he became a tyrant ruler. Who gave severe punishments to even his own family member. He took series of measures to strengthen his army and prevent the nobles conspiring against him. During his time, Mongols had entered Delhi. But later, he had a decisive victory against them. He had a decisive victory against them. He conquered the kingdoms of Gujarat, Ranthambore, Jalore, Chittor, Malwa. जो चित्तौड़ का जो स्टोरी है, दिस इज द प्लॉट ऑफ पद्मावत, a great work of poetry. And चित्तौड़ में this mention of Jauhar, that where Queen Padmini along with many of her friends, they threw themselves into a pyre. तो ये जो जौहर है, that story is from चित्तौड़. Right on, his slave general Malik Kafur, Malik Kafur led multiple campaigns in Deccan and South, and collected huge amount of wealth from Yadwas of Devagiri, Hoysalas of Dwar Samudra, Pandyas of Madurai, and Kakatiyas of Warangal. After death of Alauddin, his minor son Shihabuddin was appointed as Sultan by Malik Kafur. Appointed as Sultan by Malik Kafur. However, Malik Kafur was assassinated. And Alauddin's elder son, Qutbuddin Mubarak Shah seized the power. Mubarak Shah, write down, next bullet point, Mubarak Shah, along with all family members of Alauddin Khilji, were killed by Khusro Khan, who was a trusted friend of Mubarak Shah. who was a trusted friend of Mubarak Shah. Trusted friend of Mubarak Shah. जैसे अमीर खुसरो का एक बहुत फेमस स्टोरी है यहाँ पे. वेरी फेमस बुक ही रोट, पोएट्री बेसिकली ही रोट. इट्स कॉल्ड आशिका. आशिका का जो मेन प्लॉट है, इट इज अबाउट अ प्रिंसेस ऑफ गुजरात. And Princess of Gujarat, how she was married to initially one of the sons of Alauddin Khilji, but how when one son killed another and she became queen of many sultans, even though she had her true love was one of the sons of Alauddin, his name was Khizr Khan. So this story that how a woman of royal born and how she was married to many sultans because many of the people were fighting among each other. But nonetheless, so Khusro Khan, who is Khusro Khan, इसको लेके भी काफी सारा debate है that who is Khusro Khan who kills Mubarak Shah and all his family member. So many historians think that he was a recent convert whose own family member were killed by the army of Sultanate, and his entire plot that he is a friend of Mubarak Shah, that was just a ploy because he was looking for the right opportunity to massacre the entire family, and exactly he did that. Despite the fact that many of his trusted nobles, Mubarak Shah के जो बहुत सारे nobles हैं, they had warned him that maybe Khusro Khan is not that trustworthy. After this, Khusro Khan declared himself to be the ruler, but he was not liked by anyone. He has just massacred the entire Khilji family. And then another military commander, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, attacked Delhi, and he defeated Khusro Khan, killed him, and he was welcomed by all of the nobility, and he established Tughlaq dynasty. We will talk about Tughlaq dynasty, but give this heading: reforms taken by Alauddin Khilji. Reforms taken by Alauddin Khilji. Reforms taken by Alauddin Khilji. सबसे पहले तो इंटेंशन हम समझ लेते हैं कि अलाउद्दीन खिलजी का इंटेंशन क्या है. ऑल ऑफ दिस रिफॉर्म्स आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट, यू विल रियलाइज दैट हिज इंटेंशंस आर वेरी क्लियर. He has a constant threat that people are conspiring against him, and because of the fact that he himself has killed his uncle, so it is very obvious to him that he feels that there is a threat against his rule. But he also realizes that as long as his intelligence network is very powerful, as long as there is a powerful army who is faithful and who is loyal to him, nobody is going to do anything against him. So Barid जो network था, the spy network, intelligence network which was used by Balban, it was further expanded by Alauddin Khilji. That all these Barids were basically spying on his own family member, that within nobles if anybody is conspiring against him. On the front of army, he has to feed his army, very large army. He has to pay them regularly. He is maintaining a large army, तो army का use भी होना चाहिए. So lot of reforms. जैसे सबसे important reform जो अलाउद्दीन खिलजी का, which we have to remember, is that he fixed price of everything, and this was considered at this point of time by contemporary historians as great wonder of the world. That everything from bread to the luxurious item, every price was fixed. Now this may have served two purposes. First, this allowed food grain price to be fixed at very low cost, so that he could procure a lot of food grain and he could feed his very large army. But it also served one more purpose, that he thought that many of the people, many of the especially trading class, they often patronize nobles, and these nobles then conspire against sultans. So let's break this financial, जो पूरा एक quid pro quo है, जो relationship है, let's break this financial relationship. So this also may have been goal, that he did not want some of the trading classes to become so rich that they are able to influence decision in the palace. And he did that exactly. But because of this reform, Delhi became one of the great market of clothes, because merchants from all across the world came to Delhi, bought things at very low cost and sold things at very high cost into other market. Was it also implementable? Was it also implemented in other part of the country? So there are evidences of it, but at the same time it was not that effective. But in Delhi, it was very effective. Every trader, every merchant was registered with the palace, and anyone who was found to be, let's say for example, hoarding goods to inflate the prices or to basically increase the price as such, they were given severe punishment, and punishment was severe. For such crime, even capital punishment was given. So this is a very important reform of Alauddin Khilji which we have to remember. Another very important reform is paying soldiers regularly in cash. No sultan had done that till this point of time. Cash, kind, a mixture, payments were not very regular because he wanted to ensure that his army remains loyal to him. And paying in cash played a very important role. So his army did remain loyal to him. But because he has a very large army, he has to use it also. And he did that also. So his entire, for how many years he ruled, his were many military campaigns into different part of the country, either directly by himself or by his slave commander, most important being Malik Kafur. Another of his very important reform is branding of horses and branding of his people. So this is called Dag system and Hulia system. Now Dag system was that jitne bhi best horses honge, जो best quality horses हैं, they cannot be sold to anyone else, but only and only to royal stable. That all great horses of good quality, they will be sold to royal stable, and all of these horses were branded. There was a royal insignia on them. Once they are branded, they cannot be sold to anyone. वो हमेशा royal stable के part होंगे. Because he realized the significance of horses, cavalry as part of his army. Also, there was a proper hulia, a description of his soldiers, that what they look like. And this also was very important to stop two things. First, people who leave their rank, they were arrested and given punishment, and also to know that if some spy is there who is conspiring against the Sultan. So Hulia system and Dag system, that was introduced by Alauddin Khilji. So you can write down few things here. He sought to fix cost of all commodities. He sought to fix cost of all commodities. Cost of all commodities. 3 types of markets were established. 3 types of markets were established. Food grains, for food grains, for expensive clothes, and for horses and slaves. For horses and slaves. All merchants were called banjaras. All merchants were registered, bracket में लिख लेना banjaras. All merchants or banjaras were registered to stop hoarding, and any type of hoarding was severely punished. Any type of hoarding was severely punished. Next, he introduced Dag system. Branding of horses, and Hulia system, description of face, and Hulia system, description of face in his army. Good quality horses were only sold to the state, He started paying his soldiers in cash. He started paying his soldiers in cash. He forbade all festivities. wine and intoxicants, wine and intoxicants, and instituted a spy network to ensure no one conspires against him. No one conspires against him. Why banning festivities? Because he thought that these festivities are used as a ploy by nobles to gather and then plot against the Sultan. In fact, any type of marriages between nobles was not allowed unless you have permission from the Sultan. That noble used to marry each other in their families. All such marriages, none of these marriages were allowed without permission from the Sultan. Because again, he did not want nobles to conspire together against Sultan. Write down. Next point. Land revenue was assessed. Land revenue was assessed on the basis of measuring the land under cultivation, No ikta. Land revenue was assessed on the basis of measuring the land under cultivation. So proper land measurement was done under Alauddin Khilji. No ikta was awarded in Ganga Doab region. No new ikta was awarded. In Ganga Doab region. Basically, this means that all of this revenue was collected directly by Sultan. We'll talk about that. This type of land was called Khalisa land. So two types of land, Ikta land and Khalisa land. Regarding his opinion on religion, write down. Alauddin Khilji did not listen to ulemas, and did not allow them to have any authority. He also did not accept authority of any caliph over him. Sorry? खलीफा? हाँ, हम खलीफा की बात कर रहे हैं. जैसे कोई भी हमेशा जो खलीफा सिस्टम है, that was not just a spiritual arrangement, it was also a political arrangement. That जो खलीफ है, he is not just political head but also spiritual head. That all Muslims of the world, they have to accept the authority of Khalif. Now, before Alauddin Khilji, all of the sultans, they accepted, even took pride that they are working under Khalif, again only on piece of paper. They were completely independent, they do not have to pay anything, but just on a piece of paper that they belong to the same, again, Khalif. But Alauddin Khilji severed that connection also. He did not accept any authority, did not give any power to ulemas, but at the same time did not insult them also. That is also there. He was smart enough to know that you do not have to insult them into public, but did not listen to any of their advices. Some historians, in fact, even have suggested that at one point of time he may have thought of starting his own religion. But then with the suggestion from many of his nobles, he did not actually follow that. But how true is that? It is very difficult. Only few historians have opined that in the end of his life, he may have actually thought about starting his own religion. So Alauddin Khilji, he became the most powerful ruler of India at this point of time. But nonetheless, because of his campaign and how he behaved, his family suffered after his death. His entire family was massacred, and after this, जो खिलजी डायनेस्टी है, that came to an end by 1320 and it was replaced by another dynasty called Tughlaq dynasty. So give this next heading, Tughlaq dynasty. बादशाह का ऐसा तो कुछ नहीं है, बादशाह का ही। तो ये अपना एक टर्किश ट्रेडिशन और जो मुगल ट्रेडिशन है वो अलग अलग है, राइट? जो टर्किश ट्रेडिशन, जो मुगल्स हैं, दे डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट अथॉरिटी ऑफ ऑटोमन्स, एंड सेम इज आल्सो ट्रू, ऑटोमन्स आल्सो डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट अथॉरिटी ऑफ मुगल्स, बट वो अपना मुगल ट्रेडिशन है, अडॉप्टिंग द टाइटल ऑफ बादशाह। बट एट द सेम टाइम जो टर्किश ट्रेडिशन है वो अलग है, बट नॉनदलेस दिस पार्ट इज देयर दैट ही डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट एनी टाइप ऑफ रिलीजियस अथॉरिटी ओवर हिम। सो दैट इज व्हाई हिस्टोरियंस थिंक दैट प्रॉपर सेपरेशन, अभी तक क्या था, I told you in the last class, polity, religion is supreme, state is at the service of religion. Few adjustments happened, kept on happening. Jizya initially was only for Christians, Jews, later for Hindus also. More adjustment, that state and religion, they are not exactly, we cannot say that it was a theological state. Theological state क्या होता है कि जहाँ पे जो theological head है वो आपका political head है। तो सल्तनत was not a theocratic state. Nonetheless, religion did play a very important role. Without any doubt, many Sufis came. Sultan themselves also instituted. They worked towards large-scale conversion. All of those things are there. But it was not a theocratic head in the sense that the Sultan hai, he is not a religious head. He is a political head. But in the case of Alauddin Khilji, this again also was removed. The state and religion, the two are separate entities. That is how we define secularism. Secularism को हम define करते हैं, उसका देखो एक ही, भले इंडिया में हमने फालतू का एक definition use कर लिया है, हमारा जो इंडियन secularism है बहुत fake है, बहुत fraud है. We call it secularism, but secularism as a word simply means that complete separation of state and religion. We have adopted this definition that we are going to make equidistance from all religion. आप equidistance बना ही नहीं सकते. There will always be a group of people who will say that you are appeasing this group of people. They will say you are appeasing that group of people. तो equidistance आप बना ही नहीं सकते. तो we pat our back that हमने secularism का definition improve कर दिया है, but हमारा definition frankly बहुत ही distorted definition है. We can use some other word perhaps, but secularism as a definition emerges in French Revolution, and from that definition, our secularism is different, even though we use the word secularism. But nonetheless, I think that will be discussed in detail in sociology classes, Indian society classes, or even in classes of polity. I will not comment upon it. I have commented a lot, but right. So, but in any case, जो अलाउद्दीन खिलजी है, अलाउद्दीन खिलजी का जो स्टोरी है वो ये है कि स्टेट एंड रिलीजन का जो सेपरेशन है, we can say that it actually happened during his period, during his reign. Khilji dynasty ended. There is a question that how Khilji dynasty ended. Khilji dynasty ended by a person I told you called Khusro Khan. So Khusro Khan killed all of the Khilji members, including eldest son of Alauddin Khilji, who was, by the way, Sultan at this point of time. His name was Mubarak Shah. So give this heading, Tughlaq dynasty. Now, there are many rulers from Tughlaq dynasty, but we only have to remember 3 of them. So Tughlaq dynasty continued from 1320 to 1412, despite the fact that it continued till 1412. After 1380, आप मान लो कि Tughlaqs जो हैं वो they are no longer a very important power, especially after death of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. So there are 3 rulers which you have to know. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. Give this heading, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. He ruled from 1320 to 1325. जैसे जो book है अमीर खुसरो का तुगलकनामा, I told you in the last class. This Tughlaqnama is actually his victorious campaign against Khusro Khan. I told you in last class that there is a book called Tughlaqnama. जो Tughlaqnama है, that is actually written for Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq to celebrate his victory against Khusro Khan. आप लिख सकते हो, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq defeated and killed Khusro Khan. Defeated and killed Khusro Khan. By the way, there are a lot of constructions in Delhi, in fact, itself, which were made by Alauddin Khilji, such as Hauj Khas, Siri Fort, Alai Darwaja, not in Delhi. So, at one point of time, the Khilji dynasty hai, that was ruling a significant part of India. But except this reason, some part of Bihar definitely, but not the entire Bengal. Some part of Bengal was ruled independently by, remember, Balban's son Bughra Khan. Now, Bughra Khan dynasty continued to remain independently in Bengal, but that was challenged by Tughlaq. So, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq did not just defeat Khusro Khan, he also led a successful campaign into Bengal. Now, his son Muhammad bin Tughlaq is a very famous person. He is very famous person because of his temper. He was a very ill-tempered person. He had great ideas, and by the way, he did had great ideas, without any doubt. जो तुगलक के जो ideas है मोहम्मद बिन तुगलक के, they were frankly very good ideas. The only thing is that he did not know how to implement them. And this unsuccessful implementation, we often call him the wisest of fool. That he is the wisest among all the fools, by the way. And that is because of many of his experiments actually failed. And all of that started with how he became king himself. Now, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq was returning from a successful campaign in Bengal. Bengal was not part of Delhi Sultanate. Khiljis did not rule the entire Bengal. So, when he led a successful campaign, while he was coming back to Delhi, a platform was erected for him to celebrate his victory. That all of his army will come on a high platform and everybody will see that. But this platform was erected into haste. आपने वो viral videos देखे, लोग डांस कर रहे हैं, स्टेज टूट गया. So something like this happened, that elephants, horses came on this platform. The platform broke. Tughlaq died. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq died. So, and at this point of time, then Muhammad bin Tughlaq became ruler. अब there are many stories behind this. Some people thought that Tughlaq himself has got his father killed, that he plotted this. But historians do not actually believe it. In fact, Ibn Battuta mentions that there was one of the military commander who may have played some role into this erection of platform, and he may have plotted, if there is a plot. Or we can simply say that it was just an accident. A very famous story another happened, that Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq was contemporary of Nizamuddin Aulia. And Nizamuddin Aulia, so he was working on a construction of a fort, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq people. And these people were also working for Nizamuddin Aulia during night. He wanted some other construction. When Tughlaq got to know, then he basically asked that you stop it, otherwise I'm going to stop every supply to your silsila. So Nizamuddin Aulia cursed him, and that curse led to his death. So that also became, by the way, a very famous story, that Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq died because of curse of Nizamuddin Aulia. But nonetheless, Muhammad bin Tughlaq became ruler. Tughlaq ruled for many years. Muhammad bin Tughlaq had some of the greatest ideas in his mind. Just one of the idea, by the way, this is the map of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, that at one point of time, out of all Delhi Sultan, जो Tughlaq dynasty का जो map है, that is the largest. That almost entire of India was ruled by Muhammad bin Tughlaq at one point of time. Most of the victory was already done by Alauddin Khilji. Whatever was left of Kakatiyas, Hoysalas, Devagiri जो kingdom, Yadava kingdom है, they were very weak. For it was very easy for Muhammad bin Tughlaq to defeat them and occupy, annex all of these territories. But although it was very large, he faced many rebellions, especially into Deccan and southern region. So he thought that Delhi is not the right place to rule India. Right place to rule India is central India. And by the way, one can argue that even today, that why Delhi is capital. Because frankly, Delhi should not be capital if you think about it. There is just a historical legacy. If anything, there should be a capital into some region of central India. Perhaps Bombay can be a capital, or even regions of Bengal or Odisha can be capital. But nonetheless, there is a historical legacy that Delhi is the capital. So Muhammad bin Khilji thought that Delhi is not the suitable place. Let's go to central India. Let's go to Daulatabad. Now Daulatabad was Devagiri. जो ancient Devagiri है, it was renamed as Daulatabad. He came to Daulatabad with all of the people, lot of things from Delhi, travel which went on for a month. But when he came to Daulatabad, he realized that lot of rebellions are happening in Bengal, they're happening in Punjab, and it is becoming very difficult for him to crush those rebellions. So again he shifted his capital back to Delhi. So that was one failure, that coming from Delhi to Daulatabad, and then again going back to Daulatabad was completely deserted, again going back to Delhi. Another of his failure was that at one point of time, there was a shortage of silver, shortage of copper in his Sultanate. So he thought that let's introduce what we call token currency. टोकन करेंसी क्या होता है जो अभी हम यूज करते हैं, जो अभी आप 10 रुपए का आप यूज करते हो, दैट 10 रुपए डज नॉट हैव क्लियरली 10 रुपीज वैल्यू. आप मेल्ट करके उस मेटल को अगर आप यूज करोगे, हो सकता है आपको 1 रुपया मिले कहीं पे. इट डज नॉट हैव 10 रुपीज वैल्यू, बट ऑल ऑफ अस जो कि बिलीव इन इट that it has 10 rupees value, it is being issued by government of India, it works. So he thought, and by the way, this is by the what we are using, that can also be called token currency. At this point of time, the currency was known by its intrinsic value. जो silver coin है, उसका खुद का अपना एक intrinsic value है, जो value of silver है. जो copper coin है, उसका खुद का value है. So he thought that token currency will work. He used that bronze coins आप लेके आओ. He issued bronze coins, but called that this bronze coins, they have the value of silver coin. Like one bronze coin, but use it as like silver coin. He thought that it will succeed because there was already a legacy. One of the Khanate of Mongol Empire, this concept was introduced and it was working well. So he thought that this will work well here also. But people did not like it. Traders did not like it. People rejected it. Because of this, there was a anarchy. Then he said that, ठीक है कोई बात नहीं, I am going to return all of that, bring back all the bronze, I will give you silver for it. Now what people thought, this is the best opportunity. Everybody started minting their own coin. That let's mint as much bronze as we can and let's go to Delhi, convert that with silver. So many people came to Delhi. He realized that he cannot do that. Many are fake coins. So he said that I'm not going to return anything. So everyone who had bought hundreds of kgs of coins, they just dumped it at the gates of Delhi and went back. Who will take it everything back? So contemporary historians write that at the gates of Delhi there were thousands of kgs of जो coins हैं ऐसे ही पड़े हुए हैं, कोई देखने वाला नहीं है उसको. That was a failure. Another of his failure was that there was famine during his kingdom. That famine led to a lot of rebellions. He crushed those rebellions, but at the same time he thought that we have to do something for farmers. So he made up a new office. He instituted a new department. इस department का गोल ये है कि ये farmers को loan देंगे. That give loan to farmers and when to support them, जो agricultural credit हम बोलते हैं. Even today, by the way, that is a very popular idea. So give agricultural credits, and when farmers, for example, if there is good rainfall, there is good surplus, they will repay the loan back. So in principle, it's a very good idea. The problem is his officials were very corrupt. So money never went to people. All of the money went to pockets of his officials only. That was another failure. So again, a very good idea, but did not know how to implement them. So he was a person with grandiose ideas in his mind, but he did not know how to implement them. And that was also because of his very loose temper. He did not listen to a lot of advices from his people. जैसे Ibn Battuta writes in one case that in Delhi when he was Sultan, there were 2 queues. He describes that there are 2 queues. People in one queue, they are given some reward by Sultan. People in the another queue, they are beaten by Sultan. He was such a high-tempered person that he was punishing people in one queue and he was rewarding people in another queue. But contemporary historian Barani mentions that his biggest folly was, and by the way, this does not tell anything about Tughlaq, but it actually tells about the character of Barani, that his biggest folly was that he gave important position to people of low-born classes. That many barbers, many gardeners, winemakers, they were given higher status, and that actually led to his downfall. So this is Barani's assertion. But that, again, I will repeat, this says more about Barani than about Tughlaq himself. Tughlaq may have believed in meritocracy. Barani clearly thought that people of lower class origin cannot have higher status in the society, higher position in the administration. So many, because of his failed experiment, there were many rebellions, especially into the Deccan region, into southern India, and 2 kingdoms emerged here during his time when Muhammad bin Tughlaq was ruler. One kingdom is called Bahmani kingdom and another kingdom is called Vijayanagar kingdom. So we'll talk about Bahmani and Vijayanagar in detail in the next class. Very important topic, especially जो विजयनगर kingdom है, वो काफी important है हमारे examination perspective से. So when Muhammad bin Tughlaq died, he did not have immediate successor, and there was no one willing to become the next sultan. The things were so bad, there were so many rebellions that nobody thought that we are going to become the sultan. So many people went to his cousin Firoz Shah Tughlaq that you should become the next sultan, and with lot of persuasion Firoz Shah Tughlaq agreed. Now while Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a person with very bad attitude, Firoz Shah Tughlaq was very what should be the correct word? Like he did not have his own opinions, frankly. He was greatly influenced by his nobles, his ulemas, and because of that, he also adopted lot of religious conservativeness in his policy. So, for example, he attacked Odisha. His treasury is depleted. Odisha is not part of the kingdom. Muhammad bin Tughlaq hadn't attacked Odisha at this point of time. He knew that there are great temples in Odisha. There is Puri temple, Konark temple, and he attacked, destroyed some of the temples, collected a lot of wealth from these temples. He also separated jizya. Jizya abhi tak kya tha? It was a land tax that you have to, jo peasants hain, jo Hindu peasants hain, they have to pay extra money compared to normal peasant. But now jizya became a separate tax itself. He also, by the way, at the same time, he was very curious in knowing about things about India. Jaise, he was visiting region of Meerut in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, and he came across some Ashokan pillars. And he was very impressed by Ashokan pillars. So he invited a lot of people, a lot of scholars, that what is written on it, but nobody knew Brahmi script at this point of time. So people made up things that something, it's written that anybody who possesses this pillar is a great king. So he thought that let's bring that pillar to Delhi. These pillars are very heavy, thousands of kgs of pillars. So he called for hundreds of people, dig these pillars, and he got kgs and kgs of silk, cotton, spread on the land, so that when this pillar falls down, does not break, it falls on cotton. Exactly that happened. Then he basically transported that pillar with the help of very large boats from Delhi, from the Meerut region, from the Haryana region to Delhi. And even today, one of the most famous pillar, which is Ashokan Delhi Topra pillar, जो हम बोलते हैं, that is at Firoz Shah Kotla. तो ये अभी भी visible है, but this was not the original location of this pillar. This was bought by Topra region. So Firoz Shah Tughlaq, after his death, however, the Tughlaq dynasty है that completely declined. So just write down few things here. क्या लिखा था हमने? Khusro Khan. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq was coming back from a victorious campaign in Bengal, to celebrate his victory, a platform was erected for him and his army. This platform could not sustain the weight of elephants. This platform could not sustain the weights of elephants. And in an accident, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq died. His son Muhammad bin Tughlaq became the next ruler. So we will complete Tughlaq dynasty in next class. But after Tughlaq, we will not talk directly about Sayyids and Lodhis. We will first talk about some other regional kingdoms of Deccan and southern region. जैसे Kakatiyas, Hoysalas और Eastern Ganga dynasty of Orissa. तो ये सारे जो यादवा किंगडम्स, सम इम्पॉर्टेंट नेम्स, देयर इम्पॉर्टेंट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन, ये चीजें हम डिस्कस करेंगे. देन वी विल रिटर्न बैक टू व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन दिल्ली with the help of Sayyid and Lodi dynasty, and we will also talk about Vijayanagar and Bahmani kingdom.